Council.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I welcome the opportunity to meet with you today to review recent discussions at the Foreign Affairs Council in the latter half of 2013. It has been a busy few months with the Council, focusing on a number of important issues, including efforts to reinvigorate the Middle East peace process, the search for a resolution to the ongoing crisis in Syria, instability in the wider southern neighbourhood region, and intensive debate about our future engagement with our partners to the east. The Eastern Partnership Summit took place in Vilnius on Thursday and Friday of last week. I would like to open by providing an overview and assessment of developments in the run-up to and following the summit. The Foreign Affairs Council has had regular discussions on the Eastern Partnership in recent months in preparation for last week's summit. A key issue related to whether or not Ukraine had fulfilled the criteria set out by the Council for signature of an association agreement with the EU. As you will be aware, in the event Ukraine opted to suspend its preparations for signature, citing national security considerations and the wish to renew trade with Russia and other members of the Eurasian Customs Union. Ukraine's decision is a disappointment to us all, as we believe that the prospective association agreement has the potential to support much-needed reforms in Ukraine and to help build a better future for its people. Disappointment is also evident in the large public demonstrations which are taking place in Kiev. I urge the Ukrainian authorities to respect the right to freedom of expression and assembly and to respond in a restrained manner. The EU's fair offer stands, and it will be for Ukraine to decide on its future path. On a more positive note, the summit also saw the initialling of the EU association agreements with Georgia and Moldova. In reviewing the summit at the forthcoming December Council, ministers will wish to discuss how best the EU can support both countries in following their chosen path in the face of likely external pressure from Russia. The broader question of the future course of the Eastern Partnership and its relations with the Eurasian Customs Union will need to be addressed by ministers in the coming months and will also have to be factored into our discussions with Russia on March of the Council meeting and at the January 2014 EU-Russia Summit. The Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, has been invited to join us for discussion over lunch at the December Council. There are clearly areas where we can cooperate constructively with Russia, including on non-proliferation, the fight against terrorism, and in our engagement with Iran and Afghanistan. It is also equally clear that our perspectives and values continue to diverge to a significant degree on other issues, including in the human rights sphere. Most immediately, and in the wake of last week's summit in Vilnius, it will be interesting to hear what our Russian colleague has to say about the Eastern Partnership and specifically Moscow's view on Ukraine's future orientation and aspirations for greater European integration. Turning to the southern neighbourhood, a key issue on the Council's agenda remains the appalling conflict in Syria, which is now approaching its third anniversary. The Council discussed the latest developments in Syria at its meetings in October and November and will do so again when it meets on the 16th of December. The major recent development was the announcement by UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon on the 25th of November that the long-planned Geneva Two Peace Conference is scheduled to begin on the 22nd of January. I welcome this announcement and commend Secretary-General Ban, Joint Special Representative Brahimi, and also Secretary of State Kerry and Foreign Minister Lavrov for their efforts to persuade both the Assad government and the Syrian opposition to attend these crucial talks. It is imperative that all sides involved in the Syrian conflict now embrace this vital opportunity to achieve a political resolution and promote an agreed transition within Syria. The challenges of reaching agreement remain immense, not least since both sides continue to believe that they can achieve victory on the battlefield and at the cost of immense suffering for the Syrian population. I urge all those invited to Geneva, which should include all significant regional players involved, to influence the conflict, to expend every effort in seeking an agreed and just outcome. The other vital aspect of the Syrian conflict is the humanitarian situation. A particularly heavy price is being paid by Syria's neighbours, notably Lebanon, Jordan and Turkey. which have had to bear the brunt of coping with more than 2 million refugees from the conflict. The Council addressed the regional impact of the crisis in its conclusions last month and recognised the importance of support and financial assistance, developmental as well as humanitarian, to enable the host countries to respond to the growing needs of both refugees and those communities hosting them. I am pleased that Ireland has been able to respond generously to the major humanitarian crisis confronting Syria and the wider region. Our total contribution to date stands at €13.8 million, of which €11.15 million has been provided in 2013. In my remarks to the November Council, I emphasised the vital issue of access for humanitarian aid. The UN now estimates there are some 2.5 million people inside Syria in need who have not been reached with any assistance for up to a year. The UN Security Council on the 2nd of October adopted a presidential statement urging all sides in Syria to respect their international legal obligations and facilitate access by humanitarian actors to those in need. Regrettably, this statement appears to have had little impact on the ground. I will continue to emphasise the urgent need for the UN Security Council to adopt a binding resolution which might compel all sides, but particularly the Syrian government, to remove obstacles to the delivery of aid. The process of destruction of Syria's chemical weapon stocks, which is being overseen by the UN and the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, is underway and remains on course to meet the mid-2014 end date. Ireland has joined with other EU and international partners in offering financial support to this process. However, major challenges remain, not least the actual destruction of chemical weapon stocks, which is due to commence early in the new year. I attended an extraordinary meeting of the Foreign Affairs Council on the 21st of August, which considered the widespread disturbances in Egypt following the forced dispersal of supporters of the ousted President Mohamed Morsi, which resulted in the deaths of many hundreds of people. The Council has continued to closely monitor developments in the interim, and the EU, including through its Special Representative Bernardino Leon, has remained actively engaged in efforts to try and promote reconciliation and political dialogue and to restore Egypt fully to a path of democracy and constitutional order. The Council will discuss the current situation in Egypt at its December meeting. There have been some recent positive developments, notably the lifting last month of the state of emergency imposed in August. However, there are also worrying developments, such as the adoption in recent weeks of a draconian new anti-protest law, which fails to safeguard such basic rights as freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. The interim government of President Mansour continues to follow the 20th of August roadmap aimed at implementing a new constitution before proceeding to hold fresh parliamentary and presidential elections. The revised constitution is likely to be finalised shortly and submitted to a referendum possibly as early as January, with both elections due to be held before the summer. I welcome the invitation extended to the EU to monitor the constitutional referendum. Little progress is evident, however, as regards reconciliation and launching a genuinely inclusive political dialogue within the country. Egypt appears more politically polarised than ever between those who supported the ousting of President Morsi's government last July and those who opposed it. I believe that we should continue to pass clear messages to the interim authorities on the need for dialogue, inclusivity and restoring Egypt to a fully constitutional path. Ultimately, the problems which Egypt has encountered in recent months are political and can only be resolved through dialogue. Following the tragic sinking of a boat carrying illegal migrants off the coast of Lampadeusa in early October, in which several hundred people lost their lives, discussions have intensified at EU level on how to prevent similar tragedies from recurring. These issues have been recently discussed at the Justice and Home Affairs Council and the European Council. Foreign ministers also discussed the issue at our November meeting in light of read across to instability in the southern neighbourhood and the wider security threat that this poses. The JHA Council this week will examine a report from the Commission task force established to identify priority actions to address these problems, and the Presidency will report back on this matter to the December European Council.